Okay, let's jump right into today's explainer. We're unpacking a profoundly dramatic story of physical descent and spiritual ascent. We're talking about the ancient, universally recognized narrative of Prophet Yunus, who you might also know as Jonah and the whale. But look, we aren't just reciting a story here. We are going to analyze this whole event through the lens of human psychology, personal responsibility, and divine education. I want you to imagine a scenario for a second. It's one of those thoughts that really just stops you in your tracks. Where do you turn when you are trapped in 3 layers of absolute darkness? It's a terrifying thought, right? And it plunges us straight into a narrative of consequence and salvation. We're looking at a situation of ultimate claustrophobia and isolation, and discovering exactly how someone escapes it, well, that's what makes this so incredibly compelling. To really pull apart the layers of this journey, we're drawing on the narrative details from a comprehensive Mado 3 article focused on animal stories in the Quran. And we're combining that with some really profound pedagogical insights from the Journal of Islamic Studies out of Kabul University. Their work helps us uncover the deeply rooted educational dimensions here, showing us that these aren't just historical accounts, they are literally blueprints for behavioral reform. All right, let's get into it with Section 1, the Mirage of Escape. We have to start with the descent, that very human illusion that we can simply walk away from our heaviest duties. Prophet Yunus was tasked with guiding his people, but met with constant stubbornness. The guy just reached his breaking point. Notice how our sources specifically note he went away in anger, deeply frustrated. He made a massive assumption, thinking he wouldn't be restricted. Basically, he believed he could just drop his prophetic burden and start fresh somewhere else. And this sets up a totally fascinating contrast between the mirage and reality. The mirage is Yunus's belief that just physically leaving his people will suddenly cure his heavy burden. It's a classic illusion we all face, right? Thinking a quick change of scenery is going to solve an internal conflict. But the reality, as highlighted by our sources, is that divine duty and responsibility, they simply cannot be outrun. Our actions always catch up with us. Moving right along to Section 2, the storm and the lots. This brings us to the exact moment that reality actually sets in. He boards a crowded ship thinking, okay, I've made a clean getaway. But once he's out in the open sea, the whole situation flips. The ship suddenly stalls, it's completely overwhelmed by the sheer weight of its cargo and passengers, and it's getting violently battered by a raging storm. And honestly, the physical storm perfectly mirrors his internal turmoil, creating this intense life-or-death crisis that forces the passengers to make a drastic decision. The passengers are absolutely terrified. The ship is sinking, and they quickly realize they have to lighten the load if they're gonna survive, which leads to a really terrifying question to solve this weight crisis. Who must be thrown overboard to save the ship? To answer this, they turn to an ancient method of fate to decide who has to be sacrificed. Let's look at exactly how this unfolds. Now, interestingly, drawing lots was a highly respected legal and spiritual tool in the ancient world. It wasn't just some random game of chance. Step 1, they draw the lots. Step 2, the lot falls on Yunus, but here's the crazy thing, they hesitate. They look at him, they recognize he's a righteous, good man, and they really don't want to sacrifice him. So they try again. Step 3, they repeatedly redraw the lots. The absolute crucial point here is that no matter how many times they redrew those lots because they liked the guy, the inevitable net of consequence just closed in on him. It continuously targeted Yunus, officially sealing his fate. Which pulls us right into Section 3. Into the 3 darknesses. He knows this isn't random. This is his reality catching up. The second he hits the water, a massive creature emerges. A giant whale swallows Yunus whole. But the sources are incredibly specific about this part. This happens by divine command. The whale is explicitly instructed to swallow him without breaking a single bone or harming his flesh. He is entirely consumed by this massive creature, totally and completely isolated from the very world he was trying so hard to run away from. And it's here that the texts highlight a highly symbolic environment. The sources vividly emphasize these 3 overlapping layers of darkness. You've got the darkness of the night, the darkness of the deep sea, and finally, the absolute darkness of the whale's belly. This creates a profound, almost unimaginable claustrophobic isolation. There are 0 distractions down here, and that isolation forces him to deeply, truly reflect. That reflection leads us to Section 4, the truth of repentance. It is here, in literally the darkest place imaginable, that the psychological mirage finally shatters. In that absolute void, Yunus turns entirely inward. He utters this profoundly famous prayer. There is no deity except you, exalted are you. Indeed, I have been of the wrongdoers. This prayer, uttered in complete pitch blackness, becomes the ultimate turning point of our whole story. By taking full accountability, just flat out admitting, I have been of the wrongdoers, he shifts from physical descent to spiritual ascent.
This is exactly the concept that Kabul University researchers zeroed in on to explain Toba, or repentance. True repentance is a core educational objective here. It's all about returning to God, acknowledging your mistakes without making a single excuse, and importantly, maintaining hope. This kind of sincere repentance is the ultimate truth that finally breaks the illusion of escape.
And that brings us to our final act, Section 5, Salvation and Divine Mercy. Because of that entirely sincere return, his environment shifts. Looking at this timeline, we can see exactly how divine mercy steps in. First, in the belly, Yunus repents and prays continuously. Because of this, the whale is commanded to cast him out onto the shore, but obviously he's left incredibly weak and exposed to the elements. So in the final step, God miraculously grows a yekteen, a gourd tree, to provide him with vital shade and protection. It wonderfully illustrates divine mercy answering his call from the darkness and actively nurturing him back to health. What really struck me in the sources is this stark contrast. Without divine grace, the texts state, Yunus would have been cast into the barren wilderness, blameworthy and entirely condemned. But with divine grace, he was saved, shaded, and forgiven. This serves as a massive reminder that it was solely his honest confrontation with his mistakes through sincere repentance that completely transformed his doom into a fresh start. So, as we wrap up our analysis today, I really want to leave you with this thought to reflect on. What mirages are you currently running towards to escape your responsibilities? And what kind of darkness is it going to take for you to finally face your own truth? This ancient narrative of the whale might just be the absolute perfect mirror for our own modern lives. Think about it. Thanks for learning with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.